Hello, everyone, and we are back once again with the total NASL Roundtable with Jason, Theo, and our special guest, Thomas Rongen. How are you guys tonight?
I'm doing well. This is what an unemployed coach looks like. In the kitchen, bread only, and 2 eggs.
That's awesome.
So, Jason, let's start with the Cosmos Carolina Railhawks matchup. In the first half, it was tight, and then in the second half, the Railhawks got the first goal, and the Cosmos just took it away from there.
Yeah, well, it started off pretty promising for the Railhawks. I know we are gamers when it comes to facing big teams, and we always have been. Going back to any sort of U.S. Open Cup matchup, I mean, we've beaten like 6 or 7 MLS teams over our years. So I mean, we're definitely gamers, and we get excited when we have the Cosmos coming to town. And the first half had all the writings on the wall that this could be that could be our night. So 16 minutes into the match, Shipolani, who's our leading assist guy, was able to find Daniel Scott, who was originally one of our backup defenders, for a nice goal. And I mean, it's always cool to see a defender get in a goal. So a little love thrown the defender's way. However, it was really tight for the rest of the first half, back and forth like a pendulum, on both teams having possession, having chances. Akira Fitzgerald, our goalie, I know he's currently leading the NASL in saves that he has to make per match in about 4.5. However, he had to make 5 just in the first half alone against the Cosmos. So he was definitely being pressured a lot the first half. So right before the first half, T. Shipolani got a little bit banged up. The Cosmos, I'm not going to say they're playing dirty or anything, but they were definitely roughhousing a little bit. But I don't know if that's classic Cosmos, but it's how they came in. And Shipolani, unfortunately, got a little bit too banged up, and he had to be taken off at halftime and never came back. So between losing Shipolani and Cosmos, give them credit, I'm sure they had a really good halftime discussion. The Cosmos came out on fire and they scored the equalizer 20 seconds into the second half. And over the 11-minute span, they scored a total of 3 goals to be up 3-1. And our heads were reeling. The fans were totally deflated after what could have been an awesome night for us. We just were not able to regain our composure. And we lost 3-1 and continued to slide down that table as it's so clustered in the middle. If you're not earning points, you're sliding. And we're all the way down to 8th place in the combined standings. If we had won that match, we would only be 1 point out of 4th place, which would have been really nice to see. So, I mean, considering we're 8th place, 5 points out of that playoff spot, it's not at the end of the world. But we're having to play the Cosmos at the Cosmos. And Cosmos, you guys are undefeated at home this season so far. And it's going to be rough because the Railhawks have not won on the road all fall. So it's going to be worst of all worlds. I'm hoping that the really physical, competitive game you guys had against Ottawa is going to fatigue you guys a little bit. Maybe even catch you guys overconfident. But we'll see. But it was a good match. We had a good crowd. Over 5,000 people showed up. So I definitely enjoyed the match despite the result. So, I mean, the supporters were there and ready, and it was still fun despite the loss. John, what did you think about that game?
I think it was a very tough match, but very happy that the Cosmos came out on fire in the second half. But, Jason, do you know the status for Shipolani?
Now, the team has not announced anything officially. The only thing that I'm kind of looking forward to potentially for this weekend is it's in the rumor mill that we have a couple of new signings. It's not released by the team yet, but I've heard grumblings that we might have some new guys potentially ready for this weekend. We'll see. Again, it's nothing official yet. I heard one's actually been inked. It just hasn't been announced officially.
You heard that here first, everyone.
Well, I heard it somewhere else. Actually, I heard it on my podcast.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's you heard it here.
So moving on to the Tampa Bay Rowdies, they lost because Rongen wasn't there, I believe.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so they lost a very, very sad match there. They lost 3-1 to Minnesota United. Moving on to the Scorpions, they played the Armada on a late matchup on a Saturday night, and they won 1-0, and they face them once again this weekend in Jacksonville. And then FC Edmonton, Fort Lauderdale, a 2-0 victory for the Strikers. And a Wednesday night soccer deal. It was a very tight matchup, a tough one, top of the table clash. And can you talk about the atmosphere and your thoughts on the match?
Yeah, it was a Wednesday night match, which traditionally, we've been at this for 18 months, but traditionally hasn't been a great draw for Ottawa. But we were above average in our attendance yesterday, drawing 6,000 people. The sexiness of the New York Cosmos, I think, played into that, and as also the buzz is real in Ottawa. The people are starting to really get an understanding of how good this team is and how well coached they are, and so there's a curiosity factor. We had a lot of new people come to the stadium and enjoy themselves, even though it was a 0-0 draw. It was a good 0-0 draw. Maybe not the first half. First half was a little dull as the two heavyweight fighters sort of circled each other around the ring. But in the second half, they took a lot more chances, created some opportunities. No goals, but it was quite entertaining in the second half there. Other than that, there wasn't much news except for the fact that our new striker took to the field for the first time, Ugur Albayrak. I'll get that naturally really quickly. He's a Turkish German who we signed a few weeks ago, and he's apparently been looking good in training, and he looked excellent coming off the bench against the Cosmos. So 0-0 draw, sort of a disappointment in a way. I think a lot of Ottawa people are ready for us to beat the big team in New York, but it was entertaining, and now we face the Rowdies, who are struggling a little bit there. The Fury are licking their chops.
Can you talk about the attendance number and the atmosphere at the stadium? Because I saw a lot of supporters who had a Raul shirt on.
Yeah, I did see a lot of Raul shirts. It was our first and perhaps our last. I don't know if Raul's going to play more than a season in New York, but first opportunity to see Raul in the flesh in Ottawa. I did see a lot of Spain shirts. I saw a lot of Raul shirts, and he did get some cheers when he was announced over the loudspeaker, which upset some people in Ottawa. I was like, hey, he's in our stadium. You don't cheer the enemy, but hey, that's fine with me. It's not every day you see a Real Madrid legend come through town. So give him a good hand of applause before the game, but then kick him in the shins when he's playing.
And I saw one.
Can I add something?
Yeah.
I just want to mention, last weekends when we played the Cosmos, there was a whole group of guys that was sitting right next to Oak City that were all cheering for Raul, so a little bit nauseating having to listen to that. So they were singing all in Spanish and everything, so that's all.
Yeah.
I just wanted to throw that in, that he's got a following everywhere, I guess.
Yeah, we have something similar when the Eddies, when Edmonton come to town. There's a guy who plays for the Eddies. His name is Eddie Edwards, and he's from Ottawa. And so when they come to town, he has like this whole cheering section of people in Edmonton jerseys, and it's a little disconcerting, to say the least.
And I saw on Twitter that there was one Cosmo supporter at the match. Did you see him, or?
No, didn't see the Cosmos supporter. Sorry about that.
Hopefully he survived out there.
Oh, no problem. I'm not worried about him. Rough and tumble Ottawa.
So previewing the next Fury matchup against the Rowdies.
Yeah.
The Rowdies lost. They're a bit shaken up with the coaching change. What are your thoughts going into this matchup at home?
Well, I've started writing my preview, and in it I talk about a wounded animal and how dangerous a wounded animal can be. You can't overlook a team that's struggling, and that's a trap game. So Fury's gonna have really careful about not taking that for granted. And it's also still a team that's in fourth place, so they are battling for that playoff spot with Ottawa. And so it's an opportunity to put a positive spin on this 3-game homestand, which hasn't been all that great, to be honest. We lost to Minnesota late, and we had the Cosmos come in yesterday, and we drew. So that's 1 point out of 6, if you're counting, and that's not that great. So getting 3 points tomorrow, Saturday, would be a good turnaround of that homestand.
Can we get a score prediction?
I'm going to predict that the Fury will win 2-1, and it'll be late. Let's just say that. Throw that in there for fun.
Next up, the Atlanta Silverbacks are facing FC Edmonton. I believe Paul thinks they are going to win this matchup. They have been playing great, but he did say that there needs to be some change with their reserve, so I feel like it's going to be a tight match there. The Strikers are facing Indy 11. Indy 11, I feel like, are going to take that matchup as well. A repeat from last week, Jacksonville facing the Scorpions, but this time at Jacksonville, I feel like it is going to be a 1-1 draw. And getting back to this repeat from last week again, the Cosmos facing the Railhawks. And this time it's at Hofstra on a Sunday afternoon. I don't know what's the attendance going to be. I would say maybe like 5,000, hopefully. Would be a strong number. But
all traveling Railhawks fans, right? All 5,000 of us.
You guys wish. So, Jason, are you feeling confident going into this matchup?
Considering that we've scored 1 goal in the last 3 matches, it's hard to gather up some confidence right now. The only thing I have to really cross my fingers on is Akira Fitzgerald having a strong performance. Hopefully our back line is developing some chemistry because we've been a mess in defense. And on offense, we have to get something clicking. Confidence-wise, I'm sure if you ask any Railhawks fans, we're not going to be boasting with confidence right now, especially with having to play the New York Cosmos. So, if I had to make a realistic score prediction, I wouldn't be surprised if it's another 3-1 loss. But Railhawks, we have to start coming out with some points right now. Otherwise, our season's done, and it's only going to get worse.
So now the long-awaited, let's open up the floor for questions to Thomas Rongen.
Oh, well, we can start with this, Thomas, something that I've been wanting to ask you. You were with DC United early or late in the 90s when you were head coach there?
Yes, that's correct. And we won a championship in 99.
That's right. And so that was 5 or 6 years into MLS's existence. So you were there at that time, and you know what the lay of the land was back then. And now we're into that kind of time frame for NASL. Where do you feel NASL is compared to MLS in that time?
Well, that's a great question. I can even go further back if you guys don't mind, and if we have any historians in the audience. I came to this country in 1979 and played obviously in the original NASL for the LA Aztecs, owned by Alan Rothenberg. Played in DC both years with Johan Cruyff in the 80s, and then finished my career with the Fort Lauderdale Strikers that became in the early 80s the Minnesota Strikers, because the Robbie family owned the Dolphins, and the Fort Lauderdale Strikers felt that the indoor game would really take off, and then obviously the NASL ceased to exist. Forward to 96, when I was the head coach in the inaugural year of MLS with the Tampa Bay Mutiny, when we won the Supporters Shield. We had no owner at that particular time. The league owned us and Dallas, I think. Those were the 2 teams that they owned. And then slowly but surely through Boston and New England Revolution, I ended up in DC, as you said, in 99, winning a championship. And if I look at, first from a playing standpoint, the league was pretty sound. Every team had designated players early on. Carlos Valderrama for Tampa, Jorge Campos for LA, Marco Echeverri in DC United, Donadoni in New York, just to give you guys some examples.
Yeah.
And then slowly over time, the big time players became less important. The middle of the road international players became more significant and played a higher role because you could get more for your buck, so to speak, because the salary cap back then was very, very low. And MLS obviously has done a great job to where they are now. You know, you can talk about a lot of positives, some negatives, relegation, promotion, you know, single entity. But I think the league has done a great job, and I think the NASL has found a real nice niche right now. You look at the ownership groups there, most of them are very involved. Most of them have decent enough pockets to be able to sustain something. Some of them are serious about building stadiums and are really involved in that. Look at Indianapolis, look at Tampa for that matter. New York is actively seeking. The Rauls of the world, I'm not saying it's going to be the norm, but you see more and more teams trying to go after bigger players that could help this league get the attraction, but also make the level of play higher, obviously. I think that's important. This league needs to add some teams. They need to go West Coast, in my opinion, which is also important for their D1 or D2 status, whatever you want to call it. And I think they get great leadership in Bill Peterson. And I think that most teams, and you guys represent some of those teams, hopefully Carolina with new ownership, but a pretty good fan base. Ottawa just really, I enjoyed going there the last time, and their fan base have even gotten bigger, which is awesome. She said 8,000 for Wednesday. I'm sure they're going to go 10,000 plus against Tampa. Great crowds in New York. Still floundering somewhat in Fort Lauderdale. Edmonton I haven't been to, but I heard it's decent too. San Antonio, always good. Atlanta, so-so. So, I mean, there are some real you look at MLS, you got 2 or 3 teams that struggle too. Dallas still, Columbus still, to a certain extent, Chicago. That's going to happen. Growing pains are going to be there, but I think the direction of the league, the NASL, is a good one. Unfortunately, this year, due to the fact that most teams lost against USL teams, and only New York was able to go against an MLS team and lost, a lot of people will say, well, I mean, the level of play isn't the greatest. And that's a shame because that's the only measuring stick at the end of the day NASL has.
Mm-hmm. And I've noticed, like, Ottawa's only been in the league for a year, and that's how long or a year and a half, and that's how long I've been watching it. I've noticed, if you take this point in time last year, I've noticed already a big change, a higher grade of player and of talent playing in the league just from a year off. Do you see that? Do you see that improvement that quickly, or am I just, or is it just Ottawa that's getting so good?
No, Ottawa's getting good, but other teams are as well. I mean, the standings, you just referred to it. Carolina with a loss drops to 8th place. With a win, there would have been 1 point removed from the Rowdies, I think, who are in 4th place. So this is a very balanced, high-quality league. I watched this league in Fort Lauderdale, where I lived, about 8 or 9 games for the Strikers, just as a spectator. And I thought, and this was last year, yeah, this is okay. I went to Tampa, started playing some games, and I went, this is a lot better than I expected. So this league is legit. This league's got quality. This league now gets, in my opinion, still very good players from MLS, be it Wiederman in Ottawa, be it Ben Sweat here in Tampa, be it Michael Santos, be it who's the right fullback of the Cosmos that played in MLS for many years. Hartman, he played for UVA and played in MLS. I can't remember his name. Sorry?
Freeman?
Yeah, there you go. Very good. Hunter Freeman. So you get some still young MLS guys, and let's face it, breaking into an MLS 11 sometimes is not easy. So if you can find players from 12 through 18, which are still very good players, to come to the NASL, that's great. We get players now that use NASL or try to use NASL as a stepping stone to get to MLS or even Europe. So we get some very interesting international players. Minnesota with some of the Brazilians probably being a good place. Tampa with 2 Venezuelans. Countries where you can find still some good talent for decent money. So this league is well balanced with good Americans, some very decent international players and with some really high-level international players.
I have one last question, and then I could cede the floor to the other guys. Sorry. What would you say if you take the average NASL player and the average MLS player? What would you say? You've been involved in the development of players your whole life. What would you say is the quality that's different or missing from the NASL player, the lifer in NASL? Why can't he go to MLS? And what's that quality or that thing drawing him back?
Yeah, it's you have four components of football. Technically, most of these guys are very, very similar. Tactically, I think there's some similar traits there as well. Physically, the NASL players is as fit, as strong, as fast as the MLS players. So where it comes down to is the mentality. I think certain players, and I have one of them, Ben Sweat, that didn't get 1 minute of play in MLS, who's just being one of our better players, and a guy that I think right now could start in MLS for any team. Left fullback, which are hard to find anyway. But when I talked to him for a while, he just said, listen, I got loaned out my first year, really to a team that I didn't know. I got some reserve games, but barely. I sat on the bench a lot, and he became a soft practice player. So I think the mentality is a huge, huge difference. Outside of that, I don't see too many differences. Can you emotionally handle not starting and not playing after 4 years of being the star at University of South Florida? That's tough for certain players to handle. It's easier for other ones that just grind down and say, hey, I want this so bad no matter what. But most modern American young players are not necessarily built that way and have a level of entitlement. And that means they're not going to make it in an extremely competitive world of MLS, where you got to be able to show the David Beckhams, the Steven Gerrards, the Pirlos that you belong each and every day. And if you don't get that opportunity, they're not always looking in the mirror. And as I said again, if you can flourish in the NASL and do well, there's no reason why you couldn't do that in MLS, in my opinion, for most Americans.
Cool, thanks.
What's next for Thomas Rongen?
Listen, the stakes are very high in our business. I've been there, I've done that. I've been embraced when I won a championship in MLS in '99. I was embraced and became a little bit of a cult hero in American Samoa when I did something special. I've won some championships in the collegiate ranks, and I've lost a lot of games too. And when the stakes are that high, things could happen to you, good, bad, or indifferent. So, difference of opinion, that is, the owner is entitled to that. Am I happy with it? No. Is it part of the business? Yes. Were we in fourth place in play of contention? Absolutely. So why? But again, he is the guy that writes my check, and he's the guy also ultimately to make those decisions. So I have to understand, well, not understand, but I have to respect that. Just like I tell players sometimes, you're not traveling in the 18 or you're not starting. What's next? I've had some great support, which is nice to see of the fans and on the internet and through social media, which is nice to see. And other people in different parts of the country have acknowledged it as well. So some people are talking to me right now. I'm not in a great hurry, but I'll be back, as Arnold Schwarzenegger said.
So
Coach
Spence,
Rongen,
yes, Jason.
Oh, I just wanted to see if I can ask a question to Coach Rongen, please. First, I just wanted to admit, as a grown man, I did shed a tear at your next goal wins.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
It was quite emotional. I had no idea. I had no idea about the actual story. Stumbled upon it on Netflix, and I could fully admit that I kind of shed a tear near the end when I actually watched all the way through. And when I caught wind a few weeks later that you were a coach of the Rowdies, I was like, oh my gosh, this guy's going to be at the Railhawks stadium in a few weeks. And it was, it's definitely an honor for the NASL to have someone of your caliber. as part of it for the time that you were with us.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. I have a question in response to how you answered one of Theo's questions earlier about trying to sign high caliber guys like Raul, such as what the Cosmos is doing. Now, Cosmos, they have their financial situation is far superior to most all NASL teams. Similar to the old NASL when they were getting Pele and Breckenbauer and other guys of high caliber. And to some opinions, that's what kind of killed the NASL of having that arms race where other smaller markets could not keep up with, not having a salary cap and every team really having their own financial decisions. Do you see that as a potential threat to the current NASL and our financial situation?
I really don't. Look at the rest of the world. Look at BPL is the greatest example. Their money, cash, whatever. Every team gets 100 million before the season even starts. Television rights. The guy in New York owns his own TV network, so that's something I'm sure eventually all teams will end up tapping into, and that every household in the country could get it. I think the NASL biggest problem was there was no long-term vision. The MLS from day one had learned from some of the mistakes. I think the star power in the NASL helped the NASL. For years, with 60,000 people in New York watching the Cosmos play, and crazy. Tampa, Fort Lauderdale, you name it, Seattle, Vancouver. I mean, they averaged 35, 40,000 people each and every week, and reason being is because it was a nice combination of big names, because the biggest names in the world were in the NASL. The Messis, Ronaldos of the world played in the United States, the Cruyffs, the Peles, the George Bests. I mean, the list goes on and on with some American players, and I think it was a great formula for success. Unfortunately, in 1980, when they cut a deal with ABC on Sunday at noon, straight against the NFL, it got pulled about halfway through, and that's when Warner Brothers and communication in particular went, you know what, that should have been our future. It's not happening. TV is not for us. They pulled out, and all of a sudden everything crumbled. Yes, did some teams try to catch up with New York and overspend and eventually cease to operate? Beat Tulsa, beat Calgary was a great example. They were only there for 2 years. But I think that model outside of MLS is used in the rest of the world, and it's used in most countries with tremendous success. You get money, you want to spend it, you go for it.
All right, yeah.
Spencer, do you have a question for Coach?
Just want to say, hi, Coach Rongen. We'll miss you down here in St. Pete. But I don't know what I've missed. I just came in, but I want to say, what do you? I don't know if it's already been asked, but what do you think of Stu about him coaching now? I think he has great potential, and he could be an elite coach in the NASL. But what do you think personally of Stu, and how have you seen him coach when he was an assistant for you?
Not going to be politically correct. Yeah, he'll be fine. That's all I can say. He'll be fine.
Okay.
Any more questions?
If I could ask one.
Yes.
What's it been like to, I guess, coach the newest edition of Freddy Adu? I know he really had an up and down career going back to his youth, but getting a chance to work with the newest version of Freddy Adu, what does it look like for him right now with his future, whether it's in the NASL or potentially somewhere else?
I think Freddy's still got a lot left. Actually, the highlight of his 2007 World Cup was in Ottawa when we beat Brazil with Josie Altidore scoring 2 goals, and then beating Uruguay in Toronto with Cavani and Luis Suarez and a Michael Bradley winner. And then he asked me, Coach, what should I do? A lot of money on the table from Benfica. I said, Freddy, you should go to a mid-table team like Michael Bradley did to Hero Fame. He decided to go to Benfica. Got lost in the shovel. You know, they got 40 pros there. You don't start. You don't mean anything. You might play a reserve game. You get loaned out. You're still only 18 years old. He became very, very lonely for a long time. And the reason why he came here is because of me. The reason I wanted him, because I think he still can be the player that could help the Rowdies. I don't know if he will get his chance, but if he's good enough, I think he should. I saw some flashes again that really I believed that he can use this as a springboard to go again in MLS and maybe even the U.S. national team. I firmly believe that, but only time will tell.
Yeah, I was a little bit. I know when you had a chance to travel to Carolina, it was the game after Freddy Adu came on as a super sub and helped out with an assist.
Correct.
Even though you guys lost that game, he still showed he had skill on the ball. Maybe a step slower, but he still had skill on the ball. And I was a little bit sad. I know there was a huge crowd when you guys came to Carolina. I know a lot of fans were looking forward to seeing Freddy, but I understand he's still trying to get match fit. And,
yeah, he pulled his Achilles a little bit. Yeah, he pulled his Achilles a little bit, and you're right. He wasn't match fit. In all fairness, I should have never put him in because that's when he tore his Achilles a little bit. So he's still probably 2 to 3 weeks away. I didn't want to deprive you guys, believe me, but I have to do what's best for the team.
I definitely understand, but we still had Coach Rongen in the house, and that's probably the biggest celebrity that we can get, even more than Freddy, in some opinions.
Thank you.
Coach, with so many expansion sites in NASL coming, is that something that you're eyeing, or is that something that you would consider?
Yes, I really. It was only a short amount of time, 16 games or whatever it was. And I went to most cities except Atlanta and Edmonton. I really enjoyed this league. It's a great league to teach. You can get young players, like for instance in our case, Darwin Espinal, a 20-year-old that came out of a 2-year junior college. You can embrace still some older pros like Marcelo Zaragoza and Mike Van Santos. You can work with some guys that've been in the NASL already, and I found it a very enjoyable, little less pressure. But saying that, here I am. So I guess there's pressure at all level, but I just enjoyed the environment. I really did. It was wholesome. We built a great locker room. We had a pretty committed owner, to spend some money. And I think this franchise do very well going forward. So if there's an opportunity elsewhere, I would certainly consider it if it makes sense, obviously.
One question that I would have about the situation in Tampa, Coach, did you see it coming, or did it come out of the blue?
Totally blindsided.
Oh, okay.
But now I know better. But at a particular moment was blindsided.
Okay.
Coach, if you're up for another question, I know as a topic on our show a couple weeks ago, do you have any opinion on the whole talks of promotion relegation potentially for the NASL?
Yeah, I do. It's a tough topic. I look at the USL right now. That apparently, or not the USL, obviously has a relationship with the MLS, but NASL wants to do something with the NWSL. What is it called again? The
NPSL?
NPSL, yeah.
NPSL, there you go. And I look at that and I'm going, if I was an owner, I would buy a NPSL franchise for 1/10 the price of an NASL franchise, win the championship, and just get promoted to the NASL and laugh. So there's so many pitfalls. I think the NASL first and foremost need to get their house in order, and that's building a 16 to 18 team league with, and it will probably take 4 to 5 years. MLS, it's not going to happen. It just isn't going to happen. I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but their blueprint has proven now over time, more people watching on TV, better attendances on the ground, that it's just a billionaires club that can pretty much do whatever they want and have done it very well. So now, where does that? I still think it can be very healthy. The MLS on one level, the NASL underneath there, the USL underneath there, the NPSL underneath there, and everybody just needs to understand in the soccer landscape what their roles are. The lowest level should be all about development. The next level should be about development and potentially moving a player to the next level. The next level, which is USL, a combination of all three, but also maybe being able to sell a player and make some money that way. NASL for sure, right? Try to move players to Europe, the MLS, recuperate some of your losses, and understand that this is where you're going to be. And the way it is growing, and look at Ottawa. Ottawa is a great example. Only there for a year and a half. Their crowds do steadily increase. Tampa's done a great job as well. They got to be smart, just like MLS did. They got to be smart about markets. They got to give those markets time, like MLS does, sometimes 2 years. Don't let somebody come in and a week later have the season start, or have them come in at the fall season, not the spring season.
Cosmos.
That's just amateur hour. It's like an idiots convention. So I think there's a role for everybody to be played. Can underneath MLS there be eventually promotion and relegation? Yes, I'm sure there could be, and that will be fun to see actually, and gives you the models of the rest of the world.
Yeah, the point you bring up there, I have a similar concern. There's so much expansion still taking place within the NASL and in MLS and other leagues that it's hard to set up that promotion relegation table until you see the landscape of what the expansion is going to look like. You look across the world, any level of the English leagues, if you want to have a new expansion team, you're going in at like the 10th or 9th level, and you're trying to work your way up. You don't just buy your way as an expansion team into the top level, and that's what I guess living in such a big capitalist type of economy in the United States. You want to buy into the big leagues if you have the money. If you have the money, you want to be the big boy. And I don't know, just similar to what you said, I don't know if that vision can fit within the United States, at least how the economy works and such. But I would love to see it once all the expansion kind of settles itself out. Next, maybe like you said, 5-10 years.
Thomas, what are your thoughts on the split season table?
I don't get it. I really don't. I understand the split season, maybe. You look at Mexico, you look at some of the other countries. I would like this league to be in the same calendar as FIFA. I know we have some dilemmas with some cities, obviously, in Canada, what might be tough. But why play, 11 games in the spring and 20, 21 in the fall? To me, that makes no sense, whatever the breakdown is. But I think the split season could work. I prefer just, a FIFA calendar season, just like they've talked about with MLS, but also in MLS, they're talking about the Torontos, the Vancouvers of the world. Now we're talking about Edmonton, Ottawa, where it's New York, where it's probably going to be real tough. So split season, play equal amount of games if you do it, at least.
Do you think, similar to the MLS, since there currently exists a break between the spring and the fall, do you think a similar MLS model, maybe doing like an AllStar game over that break, could be the advantage to the NASL?
Yeah, I think an All-Star game, or, which I think is even better, is an All-Star team versus a pretty big team from either South America or Europe, similar to what MLS does now. That will heighten the awareness on the NASL, bring some big-time players in. I understand that you want to reward a lot of players in the NASL, but I think, for instance, Tampa has a relationship now with Sao Paulo. What's wrong of playing Sao Paulo? I know that Cosmos has a relationship with big name teams as well, i.e. Real Madrid. You probably won't get them, but can you get a River Plate? Can you get a Sao Paulo? Can you get a Bayer Leverkusen or Borussia Dortmund? Can you get number 4 or 5 on the table in England? Those are good games. Those are games that give you exposure, and also those are great games for our players to play in and against good opponents.
Coach, you've seen you've seen all the teams in NASL. You've played them. You've matched wits with a lot of coaches. Can you identify one or two coaches that you think are not long for this league on an upward scale? That they're going to go to a better league at some point?
I think there's quite a few guys that, you have 2 or 3 veterans here that were in the MLS, like myself, Colin Clark, what's the guy in Atlanta, sorry, that won the MLS Cup with Colorado, Gary Smith. You got some young and up-and-coming coaches in Gio Savarese. Manny Lagos, I think, is a guy that eventually should make the step, so does Gio. I've always liked the Ottawa coach, Colin
Dos Santos?
Dos Santos, yeah, in Ottawa, but in Edmonton, Colin is his last name. What's his first name?
Colin Miller?
Colin Miller, there you go. I've got a lot of respect for Colin Miller. He's been around the Canadian soccer scene with the national teams. Just a great gentleman. Don't care for the guy in San Antonio. But most of the guys are pretty good, actually. Obviously, my good friend in Fort Lauderdale that came back again is another one. But I think Manny Lagos and Gio are probably ones that should get a chance. I think people like Dos Santos should get a chance maybe with the Canadian national team.
Interesting. That's a hot take there, Coach Rongen, because we've got Benito Floro as our manager right now, who used to manage Real Madrid, and there's starting to be some grumbling up here. So maybe you're more intuitive than you think.
All right, guys, I'll take one more, and then I'm gonna run.
Okay. Who wants to have the last question?
Spencer should take it.
No, I'm not prepared.
Okay.
We had a special guest that come in.
Come on, Spencer.
I don't have one. I'm sorry.
Right.
Okay.
All right.
I think I got this one. Okay, so Bill Edwards, he said that that you had a 5-year plan and he had a 1-year plan. What are your thoughts on that?
I have no idea where both came from, to be real honest with you, but I guess so. Never, for recreation, I talked about a short and long-term plan. Short-term, putting a good team together that can compete this year for the playoffs, which I think they still can and will. Long-term, to sustain a club that can always be in the top 3 or 4. Not just for 2 years or 3 or 4 or 5. So we were building a really good infrastructure. I think going forward, that, as I said again, would put his team in a position to be successful year in, year out, not just 1 year. And that's a little unrealistic, to be real honest with you, because although we're not an expansion team, we brought in 24 new players, and I knew that we would have some ups and downs. We had quite some ups in the spring season, only 1 point behind the Cosmos. We had a little down, early on into the fall season. But I also thought that we were able to maintain a pretty decent form, play above 500 ball, get some wins at home, some ties on the road. You'll be there in the end. You'll be in the top 4. And that was our initial goal for the year. And then being able to duplicate that for many years to come, and also having a keen understanding of where we needed to get better, because only real games will tell you that with 24 new players. We hit a few home runs, but we also made some mistakes. That happens. But yeah, I've never uttered 5 years. 5 years would be great. I don't think I've gone past 2.5 as a head coach ever. So why would I talk about 5 years?
Yeah, what's surprising to me about that is that you're saying that 5 years was never uttered. What seems strange to me was the 1-year plan, but that's turning it on its head. Interesting.
So thanks, Thomas, for taking some time and joining the show.
Thank you very much.
I will listen and watch, and in the future, you guys do a great job. Really, you're promoting the league very well, and I really enjoy the fact that you guys have people from all different cities that can give you some, some good info on the teams. The only thing before I go is I need names for Carolina. Who are you signing?
I don't know the actual names. I only heard it through the grapevine.
Cool. Come on, Jason.
I really hope it's announced pretty soon. So I hope it's announced within the next day or two. What you can do? Hey, you can follow me at JasonNCSU and I'll announce it. There you go.
All right, Jason, you got it.
Okay, so hopefully we can have you on in the future.
That would be great, guys. Thank you very much, and good luck.
Thanks, Coach.
Thank you, Thomas.
Thank you.
And that concludes tonight's show. You can catch us next week.